know that it costs to climb Everest? Yeah, so all the horrible things I've just said, the frostbite, the exhaustion, the, potential death, the death zone, people do that for fun. Okay, maybe not for fun, but they definitely pay to do it. And it's not just a couple of £100. Oh no, it could span anywhere between to climb Everest. I do my best to fact check everything I share, but please don't take any action based on the information here. And definitely don't quote me in your dissertation. Also, some viewer discretion is advised. Some stories may include graphic or potentially triggering content, so please take care when listening. And if I laugh at any point, just know it's never at the history or the people involved. Sometimes I just get a little awkward, or the drama is too wild not. Yay, we're back! I've got the Christmas tree! Woo! I've got a pink Christmas tree with me in the studio today. We are in our full festive era. We're in the festive glam. It's happening. And I'm so excited. Hello guys, and welcome back to History in High Heels. So how is everybody doing this week? We are into the second week of December? Yeah man, it's the second week of December. What is going on? How is this year passed so quick? I don't quite know. Today, or this past month, I've noticed it get a little chilly in the air. Haven't you? Yes, well, today I thought we would have a snowy situation to reflect the coldness of outside. I know. Look at me trying to link it all together. I hope you're ready for a thought-provoking story, because today I have got something very interesting in store. Today we are stepping into a story that sits right on the edge of life and death. A place where bravery, an obsession, and sheer human madness collide. Yes, they do. Welcome to Mount Everest. Yeah, did you see that coming? Probably by the title of this video. It's the roof of the world and one of the most dangerous playgrounds that humanity has ever dared to climb. It's the world's highest peak, standing at a staggering 8,848 meters. That's just over 29,000 feet. Yeah, it's pretty big. So it's right between Nepal and then Tibet and the Himalayas. Yeah. So guys, this isn't just a mountain, okay? It's a myth. It's a status symbol and a graveyard frozen in time. Ooh, very spooky. Everest has seen triumphs that defy belief and tragedies so haunting that they're still visible on the slopes. You can still see them today. Yeah, I don't recommend you do though. So buckle up, because we're heading into altitude sickness, avalanches, ego, survival, and the complicated history of how Everest went from an impossible dream to the world's most chaotic, crowded bucket list destination. So, honeys, grab your oxygen tanks, okay? Grab your iced coffee, because this is going to be a ride, okay? Let's begin, right, with just digging into the backstory a little bit, okay? Because the first ascent, right, let's go from there. I feel like that's a good starting point. So, once Mount Everest was actually considered the highest mountain in the world, there was kind of like a low-key... It was kind of a race, but like not formally. Like it was just kind of a race. Like you were just like the biggest baddie if you got to the top first. Like you were just the it girl Do you know what I mean? You wanted to be the first one up there. So there was many attempts, but no one actually summited until 1953. You see, there was a British expedition, that was in 1924, and it was by George Mallory and Andrew Irving. They attempted their summit, but unfortunately, their fate still remains one of many mysteries on that mountain. Due to the few attempts, there was limited maps because, people could only mark off how far they got. So there was very limited maps. And, you have to keep in mind there was no modern technology, at all. There was very little high altitude knowledge at that point. They didn't really know much about it. And there was no modern communication. So there was no, phones. There was no mobiles. You couldn't just this is good reception. No, there was none of that. Okay, that came later on. So it really was a hugely incredible thing that when Sir Edmund Hillary from New Zealand and Sherpa Tenzing Norgay from Nepal were the first to summit. So I know what you're probably thinking, right? Because I've just thrown out a random word. What the hell is a Sherpa? Let me just address that question before we go any further. Well, you see, they're an ethnic group from the Himalayas in Nepal, but in mountaineering, so in this instance where we're talking about Everest, it usually refers to the superhuman guides. And I really mean superhuman guides, okay? These guys, these people, are literally built different. And I'm not exaggerating, I'm really not. So they basically make the Everest climbs possible. You see, Sherpas are actually born in the mountains. So they're already acclimatized, essentially. Their bodies are built to deal with thin air. And that's something that the rest of us can only imagine. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And basically, they make the climbs possible. They carry heavy loads. They set up the camps. They fix the ropes. And they basically keep the climbers alive on the mountain. Some of them, like Tenzing Norgay, are legends. Just straight up legends in their own right. And honestly, without the Sherpas, most people wouldn't even be able to make it past the base camp. Yeah, I'm not trying to be shady, but they do a lot, okay? They really are. They're not just helpers. They are the backbone of every expedition. I cannot stress that enough. I really can't. They're divas. They are. They're really special. Now that we've had that little intermission about what a Sherpa is, climbing Everest in 1953 was an incredible feat of endurance and skill. Think about back then, okay? Because I know it's hard to think about climbing Everest with all of this technology and all of this knowledge that we now know. But you see, Hillary and Tenzing wore layers of wool and cotton and heavy leather boots with basic crampons and used wooden-handled ice axes. And of course, extremely heavy and cumbersome oxygen tanks. And of course, canvas tents. And, this was all done without any GPS, without any radios, or as I said, any modern communication. So every step depended entirely on their experience and their judgment. They just had to go with their common sense. And of course, their resilience as well. Whereas if you look at today's climbers, they've got lightweight, insulated, waterproof clothing. They've got modern high-altitude boots. Delicious. Carbon fiber axes and reliable portable oxygen systems. And, they've got the GPS, they've got the radios, and very high-tech tents and sleeping bags designed for extreme cold. Modern gear does make the climb more manageable. It does. There's no hiding that. There's no trying to lie about that. But saying that, Everest still remains extremely dangerous, with risks like altitude sickness, which is so much worse than it sounds, can I just say. Avalanches,
unexpected avalanches and sudden weather changes, still claiming lives every single year. Yeah, let's talk about some of the challenges going up Mount Everest because, I don't know if you've seen any of like the TikToks or the videos nowadays, but the routes are kind of mapped out by they've got like guide ropes and things like that in place now. They've got ladders over, like, I think they're called crevasses, where there's like big gaps in the ice. Like, it's made climbable, if that makes sense. And then they have what they call ice doctors who go out. I'm pretty sure like there's seasons where Everest is closed, like, it's like an off season. She's closed for business. And that's when ice doctors and things like that go back in and they repair the route. So that's when they like test the ice and things like that. Everest, it's not just a climb, okay? It's not just a straightforward up the mountain kind of thing. I mean, it is, but it's a battle against one of the harshest environments on Earth. Yeah, you get base camp and then you get camp 1, 2, 3, and 4. And number 4 is just below the summit. Anything above 8,000 meters is the infamous death zone. Yeah, Everest has a death zone. I know, it's quite scary. And even just hearing that, you're like, I don't want to know about that zone, to be honest. I'm fine, not being in the death zone. But basically, what the death zone is, it actually means that the human body cannot acclimatize. So you will never be able to live there because your body just cannot. It's not happening. There's not enough oxygen in the air. It's just not happening. Just to give some perspective over what it's like to breathe in the death zone, it's like trying to breathe through a straw. Yeah. And the exhaustion hits you almost immediately. Remember, because not only are you climbing this massive mountain, like, your body is low on oxygen, so you can't take almost like a full breath to supply the oxygen to your muscles that it needs. So you're very, very exhausted. And of course, you've got frostbite as well. That is a constant threat. It's absolutely freezing up there, and temperatures can drop below minus 40 degrees. Yeah, really chilly. And I'm sorry, but they were up there on the first expedition in woolly socks. Are you joking? How did they do that? How did they survive that cold? I really don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if they lost a toe or something. But yes, and of course you have these roaring winds, like really, really loud winds. Oh man. So that just adds to everything. It makes everything that little bit more brutal. And did you know that Everest actually has its own unpredictable weather system? I know! I did not know that. But yeah, it does. So it's capable of shifting from calm to deadly in minutes. The Khumbu icefall alone is a treacherous stretch of shifting ice and crevasses, and it's claimed the lives before climbers can even reach higher camps because, the icefall is actually located at the Camp 1. It is one of the riskier places of the climb, but it is right at the start. And then, of course, near the summit lies the Hillary Step. It's quite infamous. It's nearly a vertical rock face that was once the final technical challenge before reaching the top. And it is named after Sir Edmund Hillary. And it's also a spot where climbers can get stuck in dangerous bottlenecks. You see, in spring, it's the busiest season for climbing Everest, and congestion means that climbers can run out of oxygen or stamina, and it makes the descent very, very dangerous. You see, in fact, statistically, most deaths happen on the descent, and that's because people have run out of oxygen. So, yeah. And it's also down to the factors, the environmental factor, well, not even the environmental factors, it's also like these things all contributing together, the tiredness, the exhaustion, all of these things that I've just said, they all contribute towards poor decision making as well. So some people might be like, I've got this far, I can go that little bit further, I will reach the summit, it's not time to turn back now, when they probably should. They're like, oh, I might run out of oxygen on the way down, but I'm going to chance it. And then what happens if there is a bottleneck and they get stuck? That's the kind of thing that happens. Sorry, it's not a very happy Christmassy episode. I'm sorry. But I just thought, because it was like snowy and Christmas but yeah, sorry. Maybe an oversight on my part. I'm sorry. But yes, so unfortunately, that is the truth, though. That is what happens. And it's really sad. Like, this is people's lifelong dreams we're talking about, And of course, you've got avalanches as well. They are another ever-present hazard on Everest. And in 2014, there was a massive avalanche, and it killed 16 Sherpas. I know. It's really, really bad. And that whole experience, that whole situation temporarily halted expeditions. Obviously, it would. Many climbers who perish on the mountain are actually frozen in place. And this turns Everest into a haunting landscape marked by frozen bodies, peril, and the ultimate test of human endurance against mountain weather and the limits of survival. It is hard to estimate exactly how many lives Everest has claimed at this point, because not all the cases are reported. Some people are still missing, and some bodies, just as I've said, they stay up there because it's too dangerous to get them back down the mountain. So it is hard to estimate a number. However, experts believe, like this is the closest one I've got, that it has claimed the lives of at least 330 people since the first expedition. So yes, Everest is pretty dangerous. Okay? Yeah, you have people wanting to go up it all the time. So there you go. So now we're going to talk about the economics and the tourism of Everest. So Everest, it's more than just a mountain, okay? It's actually a massive industry. Yeah. Did you know that it costs to climb Everest? Yeah, so all the horrible things I've just said, the frostbite, the exhaustion, the, potential death, the death zone, people do that for fun. Okay, maybe not for fun, but they definitely pay to do it. And it's not just a couple of £100. Oh no, it could span anywhere between £30,000 and £100,000 to climb Everest. To pay for... Guys, I know. I was like, what the hecking heck? It costs, that much, roughly. It depends what you go for, but it's supported by growing infrastructure of the base camps, the lodges, and the guides. That's the kind of things it goes towards. But yes, there are different packages that you can choose. So the 30,000 one, that option is very basic, and if you want more support, you basically have to buy it, like a reputable company or experienced Sherpas. You will need to pay more for that. And how much you pay also affects your Sherpa support. So some packages include Sherpas to carry your stuff for you. I know, that's nice. They carry your gear for you. They set up your tents. Like, don't get me wrong, this is like the expensive package, I believe. But they set up the tents for you, they manage your camp and things like that. So it requires you to focus on yourself a little bit more. But saying that, and they are doing a lot to help you, it doesn't remove the risks. Like, you could pay £100,000 to have this like big elite package, and you could still go up and I don't want to say it, but like not come down again. Just because you've got the highest package doesn't automatically mean you're safe. It does mean that you've got, obviously an advantage because you don't have to carry your own bag sometimes. Saying that, these expeditions have become a multi-million-dollar business for Nepal. There's no denying that. It brings in money, jobs, and tourism, but it also faces ethical and environmental challenges. What do you mean, Elsie May? What do you mean? The Sherpas. I know what you're thinking. The Sherpas must be making bank for all the dangerous work that they do. Right? Wrong. At the heart of every Everest expedition are the Sherpas, of course. They carry the heavy loads and the ropes and manage the camps, etc. Their work is extremely dangerous with everything that I've mentioned so far, the avalanches, the falling ice and the constant risks. But despite their vital role in climbing the mountain and helping people climb the mountain, they're often underpaid and they're underappreciated, especially compared to wealthy foreign climbers paying enormous fees to attempt to climb the mountain. The mental toll for the Sherpas is huge. To be honest, I find it unimaginable. Every day when they're on the mountain, they are faced with life-threatening risks, and many have lost friends and family on the mountain. Depending on their role and experience, a Sherpa might earn like 8,000 to 15,000 per season, plus potential summit bonuses. Meanwhile, the 30,000 to 100 grand that the climbers pay for their expedition, that goes towards covering the permits as well, and the government fees, the equipment, the guides, the oxygen, the base camp, logistics, and the travel to Nepal. So while Sherpas are paid for their work, it is nowhere near the full amount the climbers are spending, which is why, despite the enormous risks, their pay often seems shocking compared to the money that the mountain generates. Because the other thing is that you have to remember is that they can only do a couple of climbs per year as well. I watched a docu and it said 1 to 2 climbs per season. And then, of course, it's only on for a couple of seasons. So it's like not even on every season. And then that money has to last them the whole year until they can do it again. And I even watched this one documentary that I'll just like put them down below, that this Sherpa had to work in between. He had to work a different job just to kind of make ends meet. Saying that, you might wonder why Sherpas don't just take other jobs instead of risking their lives on Everest. Well, it's not that easy, okay? Because the truth is, in their remote Himalayan communities, guiding climbers is the best paying option. They're naturally adapted to the high altitude and have grown up specializing in mountain skills. So, and that is in very high demand. They're right next to Everest, for goodness sake. Other local jobs pay a lot less, and their reputation in the climbing world makes expeditions easier to get than unrelated work. So, while it's dangerous, guiding on Everest is often the most practical and profitable choice for Sherpas. Overcrowding and safety concerns. Yes, because Everest's popularity has soared sky high. Hello, it's all over TikTok. Have you seen that? Yes, I know, me too. Overcrowding has become a real deadly problem. Thousands of climbers, gather at the base camp each season, creating traffic jams at critical points like the Hillary Step, which I mentioned earlier. It's named after Mr. Hillary, and it's near the summit. Waiting for hours in the death zone, and that can, lead to exhaustion, oxygen depletion, and sometimes death. Overcrowding also pushes climbers to rush to the summit, and like I said earlier, that is just an extensive risk, or it's ignoring fellow climbers in distress, which I will actually go on to later. And it's making safety a fragile and shared responsibility. Right, now we're going to talk about the environmental and social impacts on the mountain. You see, Everest's beauty seems to kind of come at a cost. You see, the mountain and its surrounding environment are under serious strain. The surge of tourism and expeditions have left rubbish everywhere. Everywhere. And I'm not just talking like a little crisp packet here and there. You know, like, oh, I couldn't find a bin, so I just put my can of Fanta on the ground. Not that kind of thing. We're talking about full-blown discarded oxygen tanks, tents, food, packaging, and human waste. And when I say human waste, because I bet you're wondering how they go to the toilet on Everest, poo, how they poo on Everest. They poo in a bag. And then they leave it on the mountain. Guys, right, I didn't think I would ever have to say this in my life, but don't poo in a bag and leave it on Everest. Do not do that. Don't be that person. Thank you. So yeah, they're scattered across the slopes and base camp. You should see pictures. It's awful. And this is polluting the mountain and local rivers. So don't just go to their space and start polluting all their stuff. It's rude. So yes, to combat this, because it's a serious issue, the Nepalese government now requires climbers to bring down at least 8 kilograms of rubbish, and this is including human waste. But even with regulations, Everest is still one of the most polluted places on Earth. The ecosystem is stressed by deforestation, construction of lodgers and airstrips, and of course, the climate change, and the glaciers melting rapidly. These glaciers are a vital water source for local communities, and the unpredictable weather patterns make climbing even more dangerous, highlighting how tourism and environmental change and human activity are reshaping the mountain and the lives around it. Bet you didn't think of that, did you? Now that Everest is more achievable to climb, than it was like 70 years ago when it was first climbed, I guess more people have put it on their bucket list because it has become more of a common bucket list destination for wealthy tourists rather than a serious mountaineer challenge like it should be. And see what? Some climbers have little to no experience, but because they can pay for guides and pay for the expeditions, they're allowed to go up the mountain. Now, this is a problem because it increases the risk of accidents and adds to the whole, overcrowding situation. This is a controversial topic because critics argue that the commercialization dehumanizes the mountain. The cheapening of its mystique and sacredness, turning one of the world's most extreme challenges into a product. Everest, it's actually really sacred, and it's sacred to the local Sherpa people and the Tibetan communities, and it's known as Chomolungma, which means the goddess mother of the world. It's a deeply respected and spiritual place. Sherpas and Nepal Buddhists often perform rituals and prayers and offerings before expeditions, asking for a safe passage. But then when you get Everest, that's treated like a bucket list adventure for wealthy tourists. It can feel like that whole sacredness is being overlooked. And don't tell me that it's not. Don't tell me that it's not overlooking the sacredness of the mountain, for goodness sake. Look at the reckless climbing. Look at the overcrowding. Leaving rubbish, oxygen tanks on the mountain. That doesn't just threaten safety. It is also an extremely sacred place, and they're disrespecting something that's been revived for centuries. Now, to further the conspiracies, to be honest, I wanted to reference a real story that I remember being in the news. It was in 2006, and I literally remember seeing it on TV. And so I'm going to read from my iPad from this bit because I don't want to get any wording wrong. In 2006, Everest was the stage for one of the most ethically charged controversies in climbing history. Mark Ingalls was a double amputee, and he was attempting to become the first climber without natural legs to reach the summit. So during the climb, Ingalls and other climbers encountered David Sharp, who was a climber, and he was in distress in the death zone, which is, as I've said, above 8,000 meters. And this is where the oxygen is scarce, like I've explained, and the survival and the temperatures are extreme, and the survival is extremely difficult. Sharp was incapacitated. Basically, like, long story short, the climbers passed him, and this sparked a global debate. Should they have risked their own lives to help him, or was pushing for the summit defensible in such extreme conditions? Some climbers claim that Sharp was already dead, while some others believed nothing more could be done. Sharp was reportedly beyond rescue. So, it's not very clear. Experts emphasise that attempting a rescue in the death zone is nearly impossible. That, with the combination of low oxygen and the exhaustion and the extreme cold and steep terrain, makes carrying an incapacitated climber extremely dangerous and often fatal for both the rescuer and the victim. And Sir Edmund Hillary himself actually condemned the decision. So he condemned the climbers. As far as I know, some climbers that was with Mark did check on him. I can't remember exactly if he did himself or not, but there was like a large group of them. I could maybe go into a deeper story if you want to know the full situation, because it is very interesting to shed light on. Anyway, Sir Edmund Hillary himself condemned the decision by calling it horrifying, saying that human life is far more important than just getting to the top of a mountain, adding that under his own 1953 expedition, no team member would have been left behind in such situation. The incident highlighted the impossible morale choices high on Everest, and despite attempts to stabilise Sharp and his calls for help, Sharp died. Now, this was a media storm that followed and questioned the ethics of climbing ambitions versus human responsibility, making this case a stark example of how Everest's extreme environment, commercialization, and deadly risks collide with human ambition. This shows that on the mountain, the line between survival and mortality is razor thin. So, what do I think? I know after all that I've added in that question, what do I think? Holy moly. Right, first of all, if you want to know my thoughts. Right, just before I say this, okay? Everyone is allowed their own opinion, okay? If it's not for you, it's not for you. Right, I've wrote a few questions to, thought-provoking questions for myself. So, do I think Everest should be accessible to everyone? So anyone that can afford it, do I think it should be accessible to them? No, I don't. I don't know how it should be controlled. It's not my job to figure that out. But I do believe that you should have to have some sort of previous training, some sort of previous expeditions. That is a big mountain, a lot of risks there. I don't think that just any Tom, Dick, or Harry off the street who has 100 grand sitting around should be able to do it, because of all the reasons that I've said. It is a sacred mountain, and also take your stuff down the mountain with you. It's really disgusting, actually. But yes, I don't think that anyone should just be able to do it. I think that they should have, I don't know, some sort of qualification, or something more needs to be done. I know it makes a lot of money for Nepal. Don't get me wrong, I don't know figures. So I don't really know what I'm talking about. Maybe they need that money. I don't know. I think that human life does mean more that, because if they try and climb the mountain, they're not safe. They don't have enough experience to deal with those situations, which kind of leads me on to my other point, like my next point. This is kind of controversial, and to be honest, I can get both views of helping people on the mountain, but at the end of the day, if you get yourself up the mountain, like, you're responsible for yourself. I do think that there comes a point where you're responsible for yourself. You go into Everest knowing the risks. You have to get yourself up and down, and you cannot let ego get in the way. You should already be prepared for that. Like, be prepared as in, I cannot let my ego get in the way. And I'll never know what that feels like because I have no desire to climb Everest. So I will never have that choice of being like, I've just paid $100,000 to climb this mountain and I'm really not dealing well with the low oxygen, but I think I can make it. I think I can reach the summit. And having that choice, whether you're like, I really, really think this is my lifelong dream. And to be fair, some people do it and they're just like, you know what, I'm going to reach the mountain and whatever happens after that happens. If I make it down, great. If I don't, then I've made my life decision. But yes, that is what I think. But it's a different story. Like, I know that if my family member went up there and they were in a group and then they were struggling and nobody helped them, it would be a completely different story. I would be like, what do you mean every man for himself? Help my family member or me. I'd be like, take me down this bloody mountain. I can't do it. So I do get both sides. Which is not very helpful, but it is very thought-provoking because it does make you think, ooh, ah, like it is very, very life and death. Like, it's not just taking the last cookie from the cookie jar, do you know what I mean? It's like actual life and death. So I don't know, because one minute I'm like, and then the next minute I'm like, like, oh, I picked that one, no, that one, no, that one. So I'm going to leave it up to you. See what you think, okay? But yes, in conclusion, guys, Everest isn't just the tallest mountain in the world. No, it's so much more than that. She is the drama queen of a peak. From Hillary and Tenzing strutting their way to history to the death zone, this mountain is relentless. And let's not just forget the victims of the mountain, including David Sharp and his tragic story, and the other 330 people who Everest has claimed the lives of. It reminds us that Everest isn't just about the climb. It's about their survival and the decisions and sometimes the heartbreak. It's also about overcrowding and commercialization and environmental chaos. Everest doesn't just test your stamina, it tests your morals, your nerves, and your ability to keep it together when the world and the mountain is watching. She's watching you. So, guys, thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. If you enjoyed it, please leave me a 5-star review. One more episode to go of the year. I know, 2025, the year that I started this podcast. Again, thank you so much, not just for listening to this episode, but the whole journey. If you haven't already, you can follow me on Instagram and YouTube. The @ is @historyinhighheels_the podcast. Thank you so much, and I will see you next week for our last episode of the year. Thank you so much. See ya. See ya.